Hey guys, I'm doing my library assignment on um, the Undertaker graphic novel. Uh, this was really fun for me to read because I am a huge lifelong WWE fan. As you can tell, you can see the sweet championship titles in the background, and of course a whole bunch of pop toys. Those aren't just WWE; there's a bunch of different things, but I love collecting pop toys. Um, so the title of the book is, of course, called The Undertaker. It's the Undertaker graphic novel. It is about 112 pages. Pretty long book, but if you're really into The Undertaker, if you're into WWE, if you grew up um, just idolizing these characters and loving these characters, this was a great book to read. The publisher was Boom Studios. The creative team was the writer Chad Dundas. The illustrator was Rodrigo Lorenzo. Um, the artwork was done by, for chapter 3, was done by Edu Mena and Serge Acuna. I'm just trying to pronounce these names right. I'm sorry if I don't. Chapter 4, the artwork was done by Kelly Williams, Travis Heim, Tim Lady, Kendall Good, and Serge Acuna. So that is the creative team for the Undertaker novel, graphic novel. So the the story, I was kind of already familiar with the story a little bit, but this book kind of brought it into a lot more detail. So the and it made it a little bit more creative and gave it a lot more of a better backstory. So the beginning of the book, Act One, starts around page 5. Um, the book starts out with the Undertaker and his brother Kane as kids, hanging out in the woods, being kids. You know how that goes, and then they end up. They Kane starts to show his darker side. He starts to play with fire. The Undertaker comes in and he's like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" Um, Kane basically blows him off. Then eventually one night, the Kane ends up lighting his house on fire. It ends up killing his parents inside. That's kind of where the Undertaker takes the dark turn. And then eventually, Act Two, basically Act One is just all their childhood and what led to him becoming the Undertaker, becoming he what he was destined to be. It's not really what happened in real life. It's just kind of the storyline that the WWE has always gone by, but they put a little bit of a spin on this on their childhood and made it the foundation for how their characters began to arc after this point. So we go to Act Two. Around page 27 is after the Undertaker goes through, his transition from childhood to training. After he meets Paul Bear, who is was his real life manager in the WWE, um, he ends up becoming the Dead Man. This is about the beginning of the Undertaker being the Dead Man. Around page 27, that's where I feel Act Two began. So that goes through his whole, you know, the the character arc is amazing for this because he has been so many different versions of this character that it's kind of hard to place what the character arc where like one specific character arc because he eventually throughout the book and in his real life career ended up being so many different variations of this character. It's insane. It's like the most I mean there's never going to be anybody like him. So um we see him go through the whole dead man scary era Undertaker phase, and then we get to Act 3 around page 61. He becomes more humanized, the more of himself in real life and not more of like his gimmick of being a supernatural Undertaker. He comes down to a human level, and the comic book actually says right on this page when he becomes the American Badass, the biker Undertaker. It actually says he wants to begin anew, which is that's the perfect spot for me for it. That's where Act Three began. So he goes through the whole biker phase. He's super into motorcycles. That's what he. This is what he is in real life, and it eventually comes him and Kane's relationship after their whole rivalry throughout the book, throughout Act Two. They come full circle, and they bury the hatchet basically. Um, no, they basically, they take a walk together. They discuss, why don't why don't we bury this? Kane says, why don't we bury this rivalry and actually treat each other like brothers? And that's so the basic character arc for the Undertaker is he starts out. Um, he hates what Kane did. He hates what Kane did to his parents. He hates that Kane messed with something dangerous and and what he did caused the Undertaker to do what he needed to do, where he ended up as the dead man and when he became a professional wrestler. And that's and then the Undertaker held all that resentment in to and he took it out on Kane when Kane debuted in the WWE. And it goes through the whole rivalry of Kane and the Undertaker, along with Paul Bearer being there, being on their side, being, transitioning from being the Undertaker's manager to being Kane's manager. I mean, and it's amazing. So they go through that. So they go through that whole rivalry, and it eventually comes full circle. They both come out of their demon characters. They both end up humanized at the end of the story. They both end up supporting each other and forgiving everything that's happened from their childhood to their wrestling rivalry. And they actually acknowledge each other as brothers at the end, as true brothers that truly love each other. You can tell by the conversation they have at the end of this book. But this book was great. It was great for me. It's something that I've actually wanted to read for a long time. I never really took the opportunity, but this class gave me the opportunity to do that. Um, like I said, this all the transitions of the Undertaker in this book were just there were so many different transitions of who he is, and in real life he's really that character. That's what he is. If you're a fan, you know that there's been the dead man. He started out as the kind of the typical, mortuary type Undertaker. Then, and it shows it throughout this whole graphic novel. You see the mortuary Undertaker. Then he becomes more mysterious. Then he becomes kind of a satanic type of Undertaker, where he does rituals on people, on his opponents, and things like that. And then he kind of comes back down to that regular mortuary type Undertaker again, and then all of a sudden just flips the script and goes completely humanized, and then eventually goes back to that normal mortuary Undertaker again, and then at the end goes human again. So I mean, it's just amazing the transition. It was great to watch something that I love so much come to life on paper, and reading it and seeing the illustrations and everything. It was really really fun to read, and I truly recommend it. Um, it's it's it. I'm I'm a huge fan. I mean, the Undertaker just retired. I love this book. It took me back to my own childhood, knowing these characters when I grew up. And getting to actually see this on paper was great, and I'd recommend it. So anybody that's a fan of the WWE, please go read this book. You'll love it. You won't be disappointed. It's about $2.99 on Amazon. You can even look it up. You can probably find it for free if you really go and try to look for it. But I paid for it, and I went and found it on Amazon, and I downloaded it to the Kindle, and I read the entire thing. It was great. So yeah, that's my library assignment presentation, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Okay, you guys all have a good day.